Jordan St. Cyr joins us on the God Rock Show right now. Do we want to acknowledge the Canadian thing? Because
100%.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Tell me about your upbringing. Tell me about where you grew up and where it all started for you.
Oh gosh, grew up in a small farming and trades community in the middle of Canada, Niverville, Manitoba. I would say I'm from Winnipeg, which is the big city about 20 minutes north, but I grew up in a small town, 1,200 people. You knew who went to church, you know who didn't, kind of thing. And grew up in a Christian home, went to church my whole life, got into music because, if you are somebody in your youth group that might possibly, maybe have an inkling to strum the guitar and maybe sing, you're the guy. So I became the guy.
Well, your dad was a big influence on you. He was a songwriter, wasn't
Absolutely.
he? Yeah.
My first memories of music were lying in our living room on my stomach with a double cassette player, taking his Eagles tapes or Billy Joel or Keith Green and then making my own mixtape. So for some reason, I just gravitated towards that.
Yeah, what was it like growing up in a musical family? Like, was this a given for you? Was it a comparison that, he's really good, am I ever going to be as good? What was that like growing up?
I wasn't the musician in the family. Mm-hmm. My dad was. He was the singer-songwriter, worship leader. My older brother started a rock band. My younger brother played bass for him. He would, sneak him into bars and play. So the family that was the musical side. I was the athlete. So I would, play volleyball, basketball, hockey, baseball, anything where I could compete, I was in. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really get into music till I was 15, 16 years old. Yeah.
Was poetry a thing for you? Is that right? I've heard that you wrote poetry.
I wrote what I thought was poetry, and really it was just me just getting whatever was inside on paper. And that really started my lyric writing.
Do you go back through old poems? You go back through, high school books and find the gems that...
All these old songs, all these old poems, they were terrible. I wish I would have kept some just because it's like a journal, a diary of where I was at as a kid, but nothing usable, you know what I mean? But I think God just gave me this way as a young person, again, to get what was inside out.
Well, you've become known as like a muso with a conscience.
Yeah.
I know you said once that music really helps with social change.
Yeah.
Unpack that for me. What does that mean to you?
Music it bridges the hearts of mankind. If you have something to say and you put it in a song, you can either say what you want people to hear or you can sing it. And I think music has a way of bypassing this and getting here first. And so I think when we use the gospel and we use that as our filter and we write these songs and we filter it through the gospel, we can bring that truth forward in such a powerful way.
When did you first start seeing that in action? Was it songs that you'd written or other musos, their songs, all of a sudden you're seeing they're having impact or you're having impact on the world? When did it start for you?
I think there's a few different times. Like one just in Sunday morning church, just seeing why do we worship? Why do we sing these songs? Why do we sing the truth? Because it's just very impactful. And for me as a young 12-year-old where God just started speaking in a bigger and deeper way at that age for me. My faith became my own. We always had these visitors come into our church that spoke about missions. And so right out of high school, I went and served with Youth with a Mission. And I just saw how music played a part of building up God's people to inspire them. And then, okay, now we're going to take that inspiration and put it to good use. And it's going to be our fuel to get to work. And so that really is a turning point for me of like, step one, come, worship, gather, lift up Christ's name. And now Christ is like, okay, I've got a job for you to do. And now I've fueled you up. Are you ready? Yeah.
Tell me about the impact you've seen. And it can be hard when it's your own music. So your music has impacted thousands of people.
Yeah.
Tell me about that impact and what you're witnessing through stuff you're creating.
I wasn't ready for it. I was not ready for it. I had played music up until 6-7 years ago in pubs, coffee shops, bars. I'd been a worship leader as well, and there was something in me that was like, comfort my people, lead my people. I felt the mantle and the responsibility for that truth, but it wasn't up until 6 or 7 years ago where I was like, okay, I'm done. God, I'm singing your name. It's the way you made me to say the name of Jesus. And as I've said that name, that's where I've been able to testify of what he's done in my life, which has given others permission to testify of what's going on in their lives. So when a song like Fires comes out and people are standing in between their miracle and the not yet, and they're waiting, they can still stand on God's faithfulness, knowing He is working and moving. So the stories that have come out of that, not stories of being victim, but rather stories of how amazing God is even in the valley.
What's it like teaming up with charities? I know it's something that's been very personal and close to you, and some artists have done that before.
Yeah.
You represent a charity. Does it put a whole new level onto what you do? And maybe talk us through what you've done with charities in the past.
Absolutely. It's dug the roots of this whole thing deeper. It just puts a lot more weight behind it. It's like we come, we gather, we sing, like I was saying, and now there's a call to action. So I've worked with an organization called Compassion, and I love them because it kind of, you've got to put, your money where your mouth is. Can't just talk the talk, you've got to walk the walk. There are real people that God has called us to serve. The least of these, those that don't have a voice, those that have a burden that they cannot bear on their own. And so music, again, is the bridge to the heart of all mankind. And we can then put different truths in people's hearts. And then as artists, I think it's our job to just remind people of the words that Christ has spoken.
Has life always been with God? Can you remember a time when God wasn't there? It's just always been part of your life?
I never had that big come to Jesus moment. Never, I will say, I do say every day, Jesus, I want to say yes to you.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm being saved every day. I think that's the whole working out my salvation part. I would say when I was 12, when I was saying like my faith became my own, I did say the prayer, God, I just want your wisdom. And I don't know where that came from because I was 12. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I longed, I heard the stories in the Bible that, for those that prayed for wisdom, all of this other stuff will be added onto you. And that's still my prayer today.
So you've got a certain set of experiences that relate to a certain audience that are watching or listening to you. What are they telling you back? What are they saying? This is what impacted me with what you did. This is the thing I connected most with from your story. Yeah,
I mean, a song like Fires. I think people, when they're walking through the hardest parts of their lives, they don't want to be told what to do. They just want to know that God is with them. And that, I think, alone is strength enough for them to keep going. I think Weary Traveler is a song that, again, allows people to feel the weariness, to feel the breaking, because that's what happens. You live life, enough life, you're going to go through stuff that just hurts. Mm-hmm. It's just hard. We can go through some terrible seasons, but that's exactly what the Weary Traveler is. Not the identity. It's the transition. It's the season. And so people are coming back with stories of, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to hold on. I'm going to carry on.
How do you present Jesus to the world today? I mean, you might be the only link they have to this God they may have heard about. Yeah. What do you say to people? How do you present him to people that are coming across him for the first time?
You're in. You're in. The gospel is the most inclusive message we have. This isn't maybe a popular opinion, but I truly believe the love of God is after you. And when you take 2 steps away from God, you're actually walking 2 steps forward, because you are exactly who Jesus came for. Mm-hmm. And for me, not having a season of life that was prodigal, I was the brother that stayed. I've got my own set of challenges. I've got to deal with pride in my self-righteous attitude, and things are not black and white. There's a lot of gray in life, and I think what Christ tells us is that's where he is. That's where the beauty is. That's where the magic happens. And I want to be someone who Jesus came for.
Give us a quick encouragement for people that are just starting their faith journey or are stumbling on their faith journey right now. What do you got for them?
You know what? Can I look here? I think the greatest lie that we can believe is somehow we have the power or ability to remove ourselves from the will of God. You cannot remove yourself from the will of God. His love is too deep. It's too wide. And I think it's impossible to be unheld by God. So know that as you are learning, as you are stumbling, questioning, wrestling, God is for you, he holds you, and he won't let you go.